Well, thank you for that kind introduction. Again, Craig Richardville. I've been with the healthcare system for 18 years. And during that time, we actually have evolved tenfold in terms of our employee size, revenue, et cetera. A lot of things that probably many of you have seen within your areas or within your company as well. And I'm so privileged to have Grace be with me today. Grace has been a great partner for almost 10 years. And the nursing leadership within our organization is just fantastic. And I'm very fortunate to be associated with that. So Carolinas healthcare system, when I came 18 years ago, I had never heard of Carolinas healthcare system. And there's a good reason why, because they had only been named Carolinas for 2 years. So in coming down, learning more about it, what we did was put together a small intro, and it's a video to share with you to tell you a little bit about Carolinas healthcare system, and then we'll go into the meat of the presentation. So I get very humbled when I see that, as many of you are as well, with what we're able to do every day for our patients and our communities. From a geographic perspective, you can see some of the numbers before that, and here we are physically in North and South Carolina to affiliate you with what the map looks like, and slowly starting to move slowly into Georgia on the left-hand side. These are our physical hospitals. Then if you look at our provider network, they're all obviously surrounding that. So we go from the foothills down up most of the coast, where there is a population where you can see we're building a path between the Blue Ridge Parkway and down into the coast as well. So we've been at it for a couple of decades and working our way through and building what we believe is a very strong network in our current markets. What I'm going to do is share with you quickly what some of the challenges are that we have, that you have. And then I'm going to present more about what some of the things that we're doing from a technology perspective and how we're trying to engage patients and our providers. And then Grace is going to go specifically into some of the nursing and IT components that we've been partnered with for years. So us, like you, volume to value, moving from curve 1 to curve 2, very different mindset, very different of delivering care. If you look at consumerism, the market certainly in our area is probably some of you, if not most of you. We have 11 CVS clinics. We are fortunate enough to, at this point, manage those clinics. But we also have the clinics in the Targets. We have clinics in our Walgreens. We have clinics in our Walmarts. So we're approaching nearly in the Charlotte market, probably about 50 different consumer clinics that weren't there just 3 years ago. Transparency, so whether that is quality, whether that is patient experience, whether that is cost, we're all going to be competing, and with some of those new entrants, on moving our way forward. So as you go into retail, or you go into financial services, or other aspects of your life, you are very transparent when you want to book a hotel, get an airline flight. You know all those different pieces of the puzzle. We in healthcare are going to be moving very quickly toward that, as the rest of those other industries have as well. Then technology, and for us, we're really using it as a tool, and it's really nothing more than that. And the process and the people that go around to help make it happen, and will differentiate you from others in your market. So technical journey, I won't go into that. We started this a decade ago with our investments of moving to a pyramid of the patient being on top, and have very methodically made our investments, received those returns, expanded the healthcare system over that time frame, and continued to work through it. So new entrants now actually get all of what we have offering when they enter the healthcare system. Our response to those challenges on the previous slides and to some of the things on the technology scene thing is what I'm going to go into is a little bit more about virtual care. And this is a subset of some of the services that we've offered. I'm going to go into patient access and convenience, go into patient engagement, where GetWell Network is a great partner of ours. I will go into how we're starting to connect our communities all the way across the Carolinas, and actually have plans in the near future before the end of this year is to connect from the Carolinas all the way down to Florida, and then we'll start moving ourselves west. I'm going to talk about analytics, and analytics is a very exciting topic. I won't spend much time on it. Many, if not all of you, already have probably programs in place, but I will say, from my viewpoint, it's really becoming a commodity. You can buy a lot of things now from an analytics perspective, not only the software and the hardware, but also the services, and deliver that out there. And so there's a piece now where you're looking at segmentation, you're looking at registries, you're looking at care management that are going to separate you, but many of the things that you do operationally, we've had, and you probably have in your environment as well. And you can't do any of this without your teammates. So actually before this conference, before we started this, Grace and I took a quick picture. I posted it out on Yammer, which is an internal Facebook site that we have, and thousands of our employees then are able to see and touch and communicate back and forth. Just like you do in your personal life, we do that with our teammates as well. So a virtual visit, just one strategy to compete with the consumerism approach out there. We started first with our employees. We have 60,000 employees plus the dependents. We're self-insured like many organizations are, so we're fully at risk for the services and the care, health and care, that we provide to our employees. So we started there first last year. We moved that into our employer clinics. So we also contract with large companies in the area and provide on-site clinics. We also now provide a clinic visit this way. As we work with the medical boards in North and South Carolina, we also now in North Carolina are able to virtually see any patient that's within the state with one of our providers. We started first, like I said, with employees, then we moved to those that have been seen by our primary care network within the last 3 years. Now, if you drive through North Carolina and you need a visit, you can actually get a visit. And within a matter of minutes, you actually are presenting yourself with a provider. That has been very competitive. I think you'll see that price point continue to probably drop. But right now, we're at $49. Seems to be competitive. We don't do it as a insurance basis, so it's not a benefit. It's actually just cash. So it's pure credit card transactions that we do. You can see our ratings with the visits that we have. Our goal is 4.5. We're staying in the 4.5, 4.8 range out of a scale of 5. Virtual ICU, by the end of this year, we'll have over 500 beds that we manage virtually in the intensive care area. We certainly start with our own facilities, our managed facilities. That's an offering that we will now also offer to anyone else within our markets that need that coverage. certainly at a very competitive price, but I think it's something that, as you start building some of these things, you start getting the return on them, the value proposition for many others, especially as you're moving from curve 1 to curve 2 or volume to value, these kinds of strategies really make a significant difference to your bottom line and the improvement of the quality metrics. NICU cameras, I think many of us in our birthing centers have probably had cameras or ways that family members, in the state or across the country can access and see the babies. We recently did this with our NICU. I've got some great patient experience comments from having that ability. We have certain hours of the day where we show the NICU patients with a secured way to access for family members and friends who they have the right to have access to it, to come in and look at the babies at several different times. Very nice little strategy to help engage people in really at some of the worst times of their life. Patient access and convenience, we're actually in the process of swapping out all of our revenue cycle systems and putting them into the patient access world. So scheduling, registration, everything will be mobile. So today we have components of that mobile. Tomorrow, starting in the fall of this year, will be mobile to all those pieces. Really believe the things that we're doing is mobile first. We'll still have kiosks, again, moving away from people and the interactions of some of our teammates with in these kinds of functions. And for us, it's very similar to what you and I have done in our personal lives. Many of us go retail, via the phone or via a portal. Many of us bank, via the phone, via the portal. Many of us socialize, text more than what we talk, more than what we see people. Facebook people all the time. And so healthcare is moving quickly into that as well. So you'll see us, as well as hopefully yourselves and others, quickly move and start getting that to be kind of the rhythm of the life of the patient or of the community that you support. So when you get up every day, you look at your email, personal, maybe professional, you look at your Facebook, you see if anybody texts you during the night. We want people to also to be engaged. You'll see in a minute here some of the things that we're doing, that they look at their health or look at their care. Again, it's kind of part of the rhythm that they would do on a daily basis, and changing behavior of which historically have been more reaction than proactive. So MyCarolinas, that's our patient portal. We have nearly 500,000 people signed up for MyCarolinas today. It's all available, obviously mobile, big in the mobile pieces of it. We recently connected our MyCarolinas with the GetWell network. So the videos that they're assigned when they're in the hospitals are also available via the portal. They're also available via my phone. And they also actually have access to all of the content. So, what we've been able to do to extend that outside of the hospital into people's lives, I think is a great way to keep people engaged. I'll talk to you in a minute about the tracker, some of the care management activities that we're doing, and also Open Notes. So I don't know how many people are familiar with Open Notes, but it's basically a very transparent method. And it's kind of a little bit of a drive, a campaign going across the last several years, and some of the more recognizable global healthcare companies like the Mayo Clinic and Kaiser, and some of them have actually engaged with this. We'll be going live this summer with our Open Note strategy, which basically gives the patient access to the medical record, fully transparent in terms of the physician notes, the nursing notes, the documentation, et cetera. So there's a lot of education and training to make sure those things are accurate, correct, and probably a little bit easier to read. But we're quickly moving our way toward that, and we'll start that release this summer. What they say from an engagement perspective, so we've got 500,000 people that we engage with now, but if you open up the notes, that has been known to triple the amount of people that will access. So it really gives them information versus static scheduling or lab results or radiology results, et cetera, things that don't change very often. Some of these kinds of things really allow people to become more engaged with you and have that connection. And if you tie it back to the consumerism at the beginning, we're all moving quickly into this consumer world where it's not really a defined benefit. People will have choice, and you want to be the system that they do choose. Integration with the GetWell network, like I said, this is really just kind of a repetitive of what I just mentioned about that we have all the videos available via our MyCarolinas portal. It is something that we're very proud of. We've got some great comments about, and many members of that team are actually in the audience today, and I certainly applaud them for all that they've been doing with the patient experience as well as specifically with the GetWell network and how we're trying to optimize that investment and continue to engage our patients. Carolinas Mobile. So if you went all the way through, you'll see this is kind of our consumer. So if you downloaded the Carolinas app, this is what you'll get right now. You'll see at the top, though, we're trying to link things back in together. And I was in a previous session, I think it was the Carillion Clinic, that was talked about single sign-on and that kind of stuff. That is, you have to have single sign-on as you start to create a single experience for your patients, that they don't have multiple logins. We already have too many in our lives with everything we have to log into. And to have that one experience with you, you've got to tie it all in. But you can see at the top, you can see the MyCarolinas. So you click on that, you actually go into your personal patient record. You go down at the bottom, it's virtual visit. You want to talk to a provider, go ahead and click on that. If you're registered, you go right into the queue and you actually select the provider that you want, and those that are available appear for you. And then you got the other things that you would find with a normal consumer, what's the closest emergency department, urgent care center, et cetera, from where you're physically at. So that geospace is certainly a component of what we do and built into our mobility. My Health, this is the Carolinas tracker. So you're probably, if you don't live in North and South Carolina, you don't know what this is, but it really is our attempt to start to challenge the MyFitnessPals of the world, the Fitbits of the world. So it gives us an opportunity to start connecting the devices, connecting the apps. We actually have a practice that we call our proactive care practice. They actually prescribe more apps. They actually sell devices to their patients. In order to be part of their patient population, you actually have to use the tools that they're prescribed to you and or that they sell to you. So that's the Fitbits, the scales, et cetera, and bring those things back. And then they're able then to every day have a health coach, but there's guardrails built that alert them when things get outside of the range. This is what you would see if I would go ahead and open up my virtual visit. I'd see the providers who are on call or ready to take call and who is actually either seeing patients today or who's available, and Gail's available right now. And I'd go ahead and click that icon. I'd be able to go ahead and have a virtual video visit with Gail. And then the amazings. If you serve a pediatric population, I would just encourage you to go out there. It's a free app. We partnered with a gaming company. You know, part of what we're trying to learn is how to get people to engage and help change some of the behaviors. So a piece of that is gamification of some of the things. So this is actually an asthma app for children. It's educational. You play the game. You go into certain pieces. You know, your scores go up and down depending on how well that you do make those selections as you would select in your personal life. So we found it very beneficial. It's something that we offer to anybody who actually wants to download it. So if you do that, certainly feel free to go out there to the App Store or the Play Store and look for the amazings, and go ahead and give it to your children or give it to your friends or give it to your providers who can then also give that within their areas as well. So the tracker, right now we have 60 devices, so we're really kind of looking at that 80-20 rule. So most of the things that we have, whether it's the gears that people wear, which is a Samsung device for all you Apple people, and there's also the Fitbits that we have and all those different pieces that they all kind of tie into the tracker. It's one place. It goes into MyCarolinas, which is our patient portal. So again, one place to go into. You can see and look at all that stuff. You can look at your medical records, start looking at some of your health and wellness, and start looking now at some of your patient-generated data and bring that in. We then will be bringing that into our EMR and then allow then the guardrails to happen, triggers to happen as we move into the care management system this fall, that then will have our care managers then have that accessibility. So you're not continually monitoring and watching and invading people, but you're actually only intervening at times that are appropriate. And then Carolinas Connect, we connect right now with 38 hospitals outside of our system. So basically we've taken our system now and doubled it. We have over 250 individual practices, information exchanges in the mountains and around the coast. We tie them all in together. There's 237 different systems, so whether they're EMRs or departmental systems that these different hospitals or practices have, we bring all that into our Carolinas Connect, which is our health information exchange. And there's just a little picture of what it is, and we have nearly 4 million patients, again, kind of doubling the size of what we serve because of that connectivity. So if I'm a provider, anybody that had those kinds of visits or encounters all come up in our I think somebody was dancing over here, but all come up and actually are accessible to that provider. Analytics, right now, since this site was created and where we sit today, we're actually at 30 terabytes of data. The amount of information is just too much, it's overload. And that's where you're starting to see a lot of the off-the-shelf come in and be able to mine that for you and do some really good basic information for you. But if you really want to escalate and move yourself and be one of the top decile in terms of movement with that information, you've got to really start developing a little bit more expertise internally and really start segmenting that even further than what those other tools do today. In care management and CRM is big for us, a big initiative of really kind of looking at that customer, that consumer, and having that relationship during all the different times in between the encounters so that he or she is hopefully less likely to go to some of the other new alternatives that are now present. Teammate engagement, like I said, we use a tool called Yammer that kind of comes into that brings us together. But mobility is big for us. You can see that over the last year, we've doubled the amount of sessions that we have, people becoming engaged. We moved everything to the cloud. We moved Cerner to the cloud. This fall, we'll be moving Epic to the cloud. We've already moved all of our Microsoft to the cloud. Skype for Business is actually Link, if you're familiar with Microsoft products. So all that Skype's coming back in together. And we have different ways of how we do the virtual care today, but this becomes potentially another alternative. Right now, it's all encompassing within our teammate area. And that's the Yammer page. You can see it's very similar to what you would see in an encounter with Facebook, but it's really the opportunity to be able to post things. There's groups out there that if you like horseback riding, you like this, as well as there's also then a lot of professional groups. So it's really a way for our teammates to feel part of the family because they really are part of the family. We hope you are with us and stay with us and that we can meet your needs as you start to become more potentially complacent, but really challenged with what we're doing. And it's so easy to get lost in companies and with systems, and for people to feel a part and look forward to coming in. And when people go to their Facebook, or in this case, Yammer, in the evenings or the weekends, it's kind of neat, to be able to see some of those statistics coming back and know that even people in their off hours are staying very well connected to what you're doing, because most of us certainly spend most of our waking life, at work. With that, I would like to turn it over to Grace Sotomayor.
Hey, thanks, Craig. So we were talking before, and we know we're the only ones that's standing in front of you on that roller coaster that's out there. A lot of people are going to be riding that roller coaster tonight? No? Okay, so good afternoon again. By show of hands, and I can't see you too much, how many people in the audience are actually nurses? How many are actually, yay, go nurses. Woohoo! How many are actually IT professionals? Awesome, great, thank you, thank you. So Craig's done a fantastic job of framing why we all need to innovate and to continue innovating, and how our health system is doing so by harnessing information technology. Wasn't that stuff fun that he showed you? Very exciting stuff. I don't know how to use half of that stuff. But I have people who do. I have my 24-year-old, and he shows me a lot of things. And actually, people have their 3-year-olds who show them stuff. The truth of the matter, though, is that value-based purchasing has actually put the spotlight, and I'm really talking to the nurses in the audience right now, has put the spotlight squarely on those metrics, such as falls, right? Health literacy, hospital-acquired conditions, relationships with patients and their families. And these were areas where traditionally only disciplines like nursing or social work focused. But now, because the environment has changed, the reimbursement has changed, population health is in vogue, the spotlight is squarely on nursing practice. What I'm going to share with you is how nursing is partnering with Craig's team to optimize performance. I'm going to focus on one improvement tool, use of the GetWell network, but we partner on a variety of things. Nursing in our system has had a very close working relationship with information technology, Craig's team, especially since 2008, when we implemented the nursing component of the electronic medical record. Once you've gone through that journey, you're friends for life, right? Yeah. That relationship became even more important as we added functionality designed to improve patient safety, reduce redundant work, and simplify our nursing workflows. We've partnered through such things as biomedical device integration, secondary telemetry alarms, and fall prevention systems. IT has been a major ally in aggressive nursing goals, such as achieving magnet designation. Without the assistance of Craig's team, for example, my facility would not have been able to electronically submit our magnet document. Our site visit was a resounding success in 2013, and our IT partners were there to share that success with us. Our system nursing strategic plan complements our overall system plan and includes a focus on the patient experience, health literacy, nursing communication, and fall reduction. I saw Michael O'Neill earlier, and I said to him, you know, Michael, it seems like light years away from when I first saw you present the GetWell network at one of our retreats. But it's really not light years away. But as soon as we saw this tool in nursing, we knew that it would be an important addition for patient care, and we lobbied hard to get it. Once it was approved, nursing and IT worked very diligently to create the structures and processes, because you know, structure, process, outcome. To get the outcomes you want, you've got to build structures and processes to achieve the outcomes. So we worked hard to create structures and processes to create the infrastructure, as it were, to get us our outcomes. Our first slide actually shows the building blocks that we put in place. Our system chief nurse executive, Mary Ann Wilcox, is our clinical executive sponsor. Our senior executive at a metro level is our administrative sponsor. We have a steering committee, which includes nursing and IT. It meets quarterly. And leadership is added as new facilities, and we have multiple facilities joining our system regularly. But as each piece goes live, we add leadership from that facility. Each facility has an oversight of an operational committee, which again includes local nursing and IT representatives. During this conference, you will hear from some of my teammates at other sessions about components of this structure, such as the clinical practice design team and the IPC Champions program. So I won't steal their thunder. Don't worry, Justin and Melissa and Jackie. The roles that our nurses play in collaboration with IT partners include serving as leaders in pathway design teams, since often the workflow of nursing and the workflows of other disciplines need to be altered to make the pathway work. They work as trainers for new functionality and for new staff. They function as super users. I was listening to the Christiana presentation, excellent work, by the way, and they were talking about the term super users. Yes, we do have super users for everything nowadays in nursing. But as we have new sites or programs, we develop super users. And these are valuable people without whom we could not get our work done. They also serve as catalysts for change adoption and connecting the dots for nurses, showing them how interoperability with the EMR will reduce their work effort. Our nurses were adamant that if we were going to add a new tool to the toolbox, we had to show how this would help improve workflow for nursing. We could not add redundant functionality where you document in GetWell, then you have to document in the EMR. That was not going to be acceptable either to me or to the nursing staff. And in that working together is where we forged the IT nursing partnership. Our nurses also lead as champions for improving bedside practice through a constant focus on utilization metrics by unit and by department. We initially defined specific practice areas that we wanted to improve: discharge preparation, medication teaching, pain management, patient education, and fall prevention, many of the things that you all are working on as well. But these areas are linked tightly to our systems goals and to nursing's goals. And each unit's goals has a tie-in to these issues as well. We started in 2012 with our inpatient areas in our children and adult hospitals. We're now moving into our ICUs, our cath lab, and our emergency departments. These next two slides show the way that content is organized for our patients as we socialize them to the interactive patient care system. The partnership of nursing and IT has resulted in the optimization of the GetWell network tool so that our patients can get personalized education based on their age and their diagnosis. We've implemented a pediatric, adult, and teen version of the program. As a result of considerable IT effort, we're able to have prescribed education documented in the EMR. This is of great value to nursing. Patient responses to such interventions as pain medications also flow to the medical record. To help us in performance improvement efforts, we get immediate patient feedback using the question of the day strategy, which I know several of you are using as well. And one of the most promising features to help us to reduce our average length of stay has been the linking of nursing's documentation of anticipated day of discharge in the EMR with a patient reminder to get prepared the day before. Now, this has taken some collaboration with clinical case management, for example, because nurses in general tend not to think too deeply about how long patients are supposed to stay in the hospital. And so we tend to focus on what's wrong with the patient and what we can do to help them. However, now with the focus on cost of care and reimbursements, our nurses are getting more and more socialized to understanding what does a usual patient with congestive heart failure have as a length of stay, and therefore when can I start preparing my patient to the fact that they'll be going home in 3 days or 4 days. Putting that in the record, the system triggers a reminder, and the patient and their families get socialized to the fact that we'd better be planning for going home. Probably after interoperability, the feature that nurses appreciate the most is the ability of patients and their families to use the system to contact support services, such as plant maintenance, food service, or housekeeping. Now, some of those services at times complain that nursing is more or less encouraging patients to call them for things. And I know, Justin, you've had some comments about that as well. And my comment was, good for nursing. Encourage them, right? That's exactly what you need to do. We need tools because every time systems fail in our hospitals or in our clinics or in our physicians' offices, there's a nurse with the finger in the dike, and we can't continue doing that. We have got to utilize our tools to enable our nurses to have more time to spend on the things that are top of license practice for them. So this is a great feature. Nurses also believe that access that patients have to their health record and to education after discharge is extremely respectful of our patients' talents and their families' talents. And this has potential to reduce readmissions. We haven't tested this yet, but we honestly believe that it has a large potential. So, as with everything in which we invest, our purchase of this system was based on a calculated return on investment. And the money counters and the very financially oriented people in the audience would be saying, so how are you doing, Grace? Well, while we realize that this is but one tool, the GetWell network is one tool in our toolbox of performance improvement, nevertheless, it's an important tool. And our nursing IT partnership to optimize its use has led to significant gains. This slide shows a 23% reduction in falls and an 85% reduction in falls with injury since implementation of the fall reminder tool in my facility. We've also used the system to remind the patients about hand hygiene expectations. This is an area of major concern. You know, infections are endemic in our population with the use of antibiotics. And so we are very, very careful to make sure that every member of our staff, our patients, and our families are aware of the importance of hand hygiene. I think Florence Nightingale must be turning over in her grave because that's where we all started. But we're back again with hand hygiene. But this tool has the capability to urge patients to remind caregivers to say, you know, I noticed you haven't washed your hand and you're touching my line or you're planning to touch my line. So it has that ability for the patients who are able to use it effectively to help us do our jobs better. Our scores in HCAHPS have also improved considerably from baseline. As you can see, our baseline was 2011, and every single score that I have on this slide has actually improved. The other piece of our work, which we didn't set out to measure as an ROI, was a discharge medication prompt. And you can see on this slide that after we started the prompt, our average monthly revenue increased from $8,000 to $58,000, resulting in net revenue of more than $500,000 in 2014. This is simply offering the pickup of medications in our pharmacy for patients who are going home. You know, in kind of closing out this whole discussion, we're responding to the challenges of today's healthcare by harnessing technology to achieve our business and clinical goals. The nursing IT partnership to optimize interactive patient care has been successful in our system. We are far from finished, though. Every single day, somebody comes up with another way that this system could be used or another technology could be used. I had a nurse tell me the other day, you know, Grace, what about letting the patients know about bedside report using the GetWell network as a socialization tool so that they can understand that expectation? Sometimes, I don't know about your facility, sometimes our teams get testy. So it's not all sweetness and light. Don't let me fool you into thinking that. I mean, Craig and I get along just fine when things are working just fine. But sometimes you might hear IT talk about scope creep. Have you ever heard of that? Scope creep? What do you think that means? What it means is nursing is pinging on IT to do something that nursing believes will help patients, but it's not in scope. Not this time, not now, maybe next year, maybe in 3 years. And frankly, nursing is a very impatient discipline when we believe that somebody else is doing something. Hey, why, if Banner is doing it, why can't we do it? You know, what version do we have? And so we start needling and getting in there to say, why? Why can't we do it? And so I'm sure it drives Craig crazy, but he would never let on or admit to that. And you might also hear nursing saying, you know, IT is interested in implementation. Implement, not optimization. We know that the system can do more than whatever system it is, the EMR, GetWell network, whatever. We know we can do more with the system than we're doing now. Why can't we stop and optimize before we keep implementing? Do you get that in your facilities? Okay, so it's not just mine. You know, at the end of the day, though, information technology, the teams of people who work in IT are extremely excellent at project management. I've never met a group that's so superb at project management. Nursing is fantastic at looking at the holistic care of patients. And when we meld the two together, there's no beating that combination. We're going to have to continue doing that going forward, because our mutual goal in my system, and in many other systems as well, it's not unique to us, is patients first always. I can't think of a more worthwhile goal, I can't think of a more worthwhile use of technology than to blend it with clinical talent so that we can offer the very, very best to our patients and their families. Thank you. So we have time for some questions, and we'll be happy to try to answer them for you.
This is wonderful. I do have a question, though. Did you increase your staffing to meet this need?
No, we did not. We were looking, just to add a little to this, whenever we are looking at different care delivery models, we're also looking at how can we do that either within the resources that we have, or how can we optimize systems so that we can reduce the use of resources. We cannot keep adding resources. In fact, technology has to help us optimize the use of what we have.
Where do you see the future of this personalized medicine where people have their own apps, you can collect the data, 35 terabytes? Is this going to be a private industry? Is this going to become a national database, a worldwide database? Where do you see that going? Because there's an incredible amount of power, not only from the research perspective, but for real-time use, be it at the hospital, in the field, wherever. Where do you see that going, and who are going to be the key players in that?
That's a great question. If I had my crystal ball with me, I'd give you the exact answer, but I will tell you what I think. You may not know this, but Charlotte is actually the second financial services capital to New York City. So it's the home of Bank of America, Wells Fargo's East Side, BB&T. There's a lot of financial services, and I associate a lot of what we do to financial services, retail, energy, and think that that's where we're going to be heading towards. And if you look how that has kind of happened, you start to see a lot of consolidations. You're starting to see geographics not become an issue. That's why the investments in virtual care, so that we will be competitive regionally, but also nationally, and you'll start seeing that kind of move its way along. And I think in order for you to be able to compete in that new world, you are going to have to make a lot of intelligent use of the information that you're gathering. That's why for us right now, we really don't know what to do with all of the data. Like the patient-generated data, we're starting to bring all that in, but we know one day we will need it. So we're capturing it now, where we work through other types of analytics components, predictive and advanced analytics, but we know that moving forward in the future, that information is going to play a significant role. So do we invest in this population or in this geographic region or in that one? A lot of it's going to depend on what that information tells us and where we begin in that journey of health and of care. And so it's going to be very segmented. So segmentation for us will be big. It should be for others, so that you can start focusing your resources appropriately and not treating everybody the same. Because you start doing that, you get a lot of wasted resources. So that's where I think things are going. You'll have, I don't know, several dozen is what's being predicted of large healthcare systems. You'll still have some of your community ones, but things will really bubble up. And many of you, you could right now bank with Bank of America, Wells Fargo, Ally, you name it. You don't have to be around any of those physically. Same thing's going to have, very similar things going to happen within healthcare.
My question is, with your open notes, what were the barriers that you had for open notes, and what kind of education are you doing for that?
It sounds like that question came from God, because I
Yeah.
can't see where it came from.
Where
I was
did it
like,
come from?
okay, then. You sound like one of my physicians,
So God is a woman, Craig.
Yeah. Open notes will be one of the most sensitive topics you'll have with your physicians. No different than CPOE though, and no different from 8 years ago with e-prescribing. You'll start seeing that, the open notes is a threat. They've all been trained to be autonomous, all been trained to be the knowledge experts, the captures of the information, and very little exposure as to, there was a video that I saw earlier where it talked about kind of the one-way conversations. So it's really been with our physician providers has been the barriers to move forward with it. However, if you say, as Grace said, patients first, not providers first, it takes a whole different annotation. So put yourself in the seat of being a patient versus being a provider and having access to that information, have that transparency, that communication going across, and then the whole conversation changes. And so we'll do it in a very methodical way. I'm kind of more of a dimmer switch guy. I'm not a, flip the light switch and it's all kind of there. But I think what we'll see is, you'll see when we start turning that on, I think we'll see very little negative impact, no resource impact. And similar to the other industries, patients taking ownership for their health and of their care and having access to the information that allows them to take ownership for that. Some of that might mean that I'm going to turn around and go to this provider instead of you, but if you're the best and you've got that engagement, they will stick with you.
I'd like to add to that. We have a hospital in the Central Division where I'm the chief nurse that's Plaintree designated. And are you familiar with Plaintree? So in the Plaintree system, one of the things that are held dear is that relationship of the provider to the patient, but respect for the patient as the owner of their medical record. So the open medical record is already a construct in Plaintree. So this hospital is already bringing patients in to say, would you like to see your medical record, Mrs. Jones? The physicians are aware of it, so we had to cross that threshold when we first started it, but the understanding is there that the record is the patient's. It's not ours. We serve as interpreters, we serve as explainers, but at the end of the day, it's their life, it's their health, it's their record. So we'll like Craig says, walk our way carefully with this one, because we do have some, and I'm sure you have none of this in your system, we have some rabble-rousing physicians who are afraid of everything. You remember when we had to do disclosures when an event occurred with a patient, so you disclose to the patient, oh, well, it happened, right? It actually occurred, right? It's the truth, right? So let's tell the patient. The issue is less worry about communication. We should worry more when we don't communicate.
My question is, how do you, I guess, address the issues with patients and patients on the older side like I am who are used to or who are concerned about this move to technology in reference to opening up all of our private information to computers and possibly security issues, HIPAA issues, identity theft, and feeling comfortable. I mean, we are doing a lot of things online, but this is a higher level of personal data that we're moving, and you guys are doing a lot of wonderful things, but how do you address the issues of security and confidentiality and safety of that data?
Great question. One that, I always say, somebody always asks the question, what keeps you up at night? And nothing keeps me up at night. I can sleep like a rock, no problem at all. But that is something that recently is really kind of getting a lot more exposure. And you look at the information that we have. So if you look at the United States, and I have a great slide that shows the 24 hours of our firewalls throughout our system and the penetrations of people coming in, tapping into our firewall. There's literally thousands that happen from all around the world. So you see this Carolinas healthcare system, and you see China, Russia, North Korea being the three big nation states that are always tapping into all of ours, all of yours, trying to find that one hole that they can go ahead and come in. And the problem is when they find that hole, they come back, they educate, they plan the attack, and then they come in, then a lot of things gets accessed and exposed. And it typically takes the average system about 5 months to figure out that there's been a virus or an attack within your network. And by then, a lot of the information has been taken out. So if you look at it nationally, physically we don't have to worry about being attacked by them. There's borders, there's defense systems, but unfortunately the internet was designed to be open. It was designed to be available to anyone across the world. So we don't have boundaries around the United States, so I have to protect not only what happens in the States from those criminals, but also outside of it. So that is a big concern. Last year there were 754 healthcare breaches. Some of those were in the tens of millions that have happened. If you look at just providing a monitoring service for those patients, at $150 a year, $12 a month, times 3 to 5 years, you're talking about a huge amount of financial investment or risk that you have. So that is hard. It's a tough question. No different than what's happening in your personal life, though, and other pieces of it, financial, credit cards, et cetera. But on the black market, a medical record is worth about $50. A credit card, Social Security number is now less than $1. So we will be targeted more over the next several years than what we've been targeted in the past, even though that's been, in my opinion, quite large. So it's tough.
I have a question. What does a virtual ICU?
A virtual ICU?
Yeah.
Okay, so basically what we have is we have intensivists set up. If the picture was up there, you'd see they're actually monitoring multiple patients. So as opposed to having an intensivist on site, which many community hospitals can't afford to do, there's an intensivist that's monitoring that patient 7/24. And so we have over 300 of our ICU beds, approaching 500 by the end of the year, where is basically, if you look at it, it'd be kind of like walking into Star Wars. So there's a person there sitting there, and they got monitors around them, and they methodically rotate all the way through, and if things get out of a certain threshold, then they're automatically alerted and can go ahead and intervene. Nursing plays a huge role because the nurses are still there. They're still there on site. If they need that physical touch to occur, the nursing staff and the associated people with the care team are there. The intensivist is the quarterback sitting in a different facility providing that service.
So just to add to that, so the virtual ICU is generally staffed by a group of nurses. You may have one intensivist who's the resource person for all of those nurses. But these are ICU trained nurses, and they can monitor. When I worked in St. Louis, we actually have a hospital in AnMed Health that's being monitored in St. Louis. So time is not a barrier to this. Place is not a barrier to this happening. So you could monitor an entire group of hospitals, like Craig said, from one location electronically. The patient, there's a camera within the patient's room that feeds into the virtual ICU. So patients are aware that this is happening. The camera is turned off for privacy when necessary, but we have been able to improve care remarkably using the virtual ICU because it's 24/7. You can see whether processes are being followed, right? You can see a variety of things that are occurring with our patients that you would not normally be able to see simply by having care being given on a one-to-one traditional basis. So it's a way of optimizing the spread of intensivists, and it's a way of optimizing the care of our patients clinically.
So one last question. Oh, we got it right here.
Okay, it's a two-part question.
Oh, can we do both?
Smart.
I don't know.
Number one, are you hiring? And number two, on the open notes, you're going to release progress notes for nurses and physicians, correct?
Correct.
Will you have from this day forward, we're going to release the notes, or are you going to go back 5 years?
Great question. We're always hiring. I think Grace
Always
always hiring. But no, there's actually a cutoff, and it's really 8/1 is the date. So 8/1 right now is the tentative date. Nothing before that, from the notes perspective, would be released via the patient portal. They can still obviously get it via a hard copy, but it's from that point moving forward. So a lot of education going on to ensure a lot of reviews of notes. As you probably know, there's some cutting and pasting that happens, and people put wrong things in. So there's a lot of things going on to improve our documentation so that when that gets turned on, that it won't have as much exposure as what people think. But no, it's from a certain date forward. No history would be online.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
That's it. Thank you.